Let's continue our review of these fundamentals for the Sunni intellectual. And today, inshallah ta'ala, we're going to start reviewing the causes of knowledge. And the meaning of something that causes knowledge is that, as we're going to see, the creations, they need something to cause knowledge for them, to trigger knowledge for them. The creator, though, he has the eternal knowledge of everything, and he even knows what's not going to happen, and if it were to happen, how it would happen. So he doesn't need something to cause knowledge for him. The creations need what causes knowledge for them, and our scholars have clarified what exactly is that. And so the author says, Allah said in the Quran, والله أخرجكم من بطون أمهاتكم لا تعلمون شيئا وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة وجعل لكم السمع والأبصار والأفئدة لعلكم تشكرون. Allah brought you from the bellies of your mothers, not knowing anything. That means you come out of your mother and your knowledge is zero. And He made hearing, sight, and hearts for you so that you would be thankful, so that you would appreciate. He made hearing and sight for you. That means He made senses for you. Yani, He gave you a means of input. He gave you a means of inputting information from the world around you. And He gave you hearts which are the places of your minds. And these minds will process the information for you and enable you to theorize even. Allah created tools for the ignorant newborn by which he would achieve knowledge, senses, and a heart. The heart, which is the true location of the mind. An-Nasafi, the interpreter, Abdullah ibn Ahmed, said, the meaning of the ayah is that Allah did not create these things in you but as tools for removing the ignorance with which you were born and for getting knowledge to apply. أي ما ركب فيكم هذه الأشياء إلا آلات لإزالة الجهل الذي ولدتم عليه واجتلاب العلم والعمل به. And the other Nasafi, the theologian Abu Hafs Umar, said, وَأَسْبَابُ الْعِلْمِ لِلْخَلْقِ ثَلَاثَةٌ. There are three causes of knowledge for the creations. الْحَوَاسُ السَّلِيمَةُ وَالْخَبَرُ الصَّادِقُ وَالْعَقْلُ. Sound senses, accurate news, and intellect. We've covered all of this. So you should be able to say to yourself, because you know, there are three causes of knowledge for creations: sound senses, accurate news, and intellect. And if that's not firm in your heart, then sometime in the middle of your day or the middle of your night, you test yourself. And you say, the causes of knowledge. How many were there? Three. Three. There were three. What are they? Senses. But really sound senses. But, yani, you know how people are loose. Senses and news. Accurate news, not just news. Accurate news. And what else? Intellect. Senses cause knowledge. Knowledge by any of the five senses is necessary. Now you know what necessary knowledge is. You should know very well. Necessary knowledge is knowledge born in you without the need to think. There are several ways you can get this kind of knowledge, and sound senses is one of them. Unsound senses could be because of extreme desert heat, causing you to hallucinate, or intoxication, also causing you to hallucinate or dulling you, making you numb. What is seen through a filter like glass may appear closer or larger than it truly is. Therefore, it is not a true witnessing that promotes definitive knowledge. But here, there's an adjustment. Alhamdulillah. Praise and thanks are due to Allah, who enabled us to learn. And if we made mistakes, He enabled us to fix them. So there's a clarity, a much needed clarity here. Someone even asked me, let me see if you're in here. I believe it was Abdul Qawi who asked about glasses. Because you're looking through glass. That glass is, when you're wearing glasses, it warps something for you, doesn't it? Yes, it does. It does some warping so that helps your eye focus, for example. Uh, so what's mentioned here says, what is seen through a filter like glass may appear closer or larger than it truly is. That is to say, you're not seeing it as it truly is. You're not perceiving it as it truly is. But that's not to say that using instruments will never get you to true knowledge. That's not to say that using instruments will not get you to true knowledge. In fact, when we went over this last time, I said a statement that might be too broad. That's not knowledge. Like you're looking through binoculars, you're looking through telescope, looking through water, you're looking through glass. Maybe when you look at something through the glass, you have a bottle. From the outside, it looks like the bottle's full, but in the inside would not be full. Meaning, from the inside, for example, maybe the hollow opening, the cavity inside is very thin, really, in reality, but from the outside looks like it's wide. So, do you get knowledge by looking through a filter or not? It looks like there's details here, which I'm not prepared to go into details, but just because a person is using some sort of apparatus or some sort of tool, it doesn't mean that he is unable to achieve knowledge by the use of this apparatus or tool. Could be able to achieve knowledge. The scholars talked about achieving knowledge by using the North Star. The scholars talked about achieving knowledge by using a tested compass, but also while being a high expert. Also, while being a high expert, a high level expert. Not merely using the tool only got a person to knowledge, but also being an expert, a very high expert, while using these tools, one was able to achieve knowledge. So, what I really do want you to understand now is that realize when you are not perceiving something as it truly is, so that you're not defied by your senses. So when you look through the binoculars, you see something and you perceive it to be closer than it really is. So the thing that's not really in compliance with reality, the perception you have that's not really in compliance with reality. You want to make adjustment for that. Just like you do when you're driving and you see in the rearview mirror it says objects may appear closer than they really are. So that means without that notice there, you might think you're perceiving something as it is, but you're not. So to protect you from that, they gave you a disclaimer. Objects may appear closer than they really are. So, Yani, I'm not even a big expert in all of what I'm telling you here. So I can't really go further than what I'm saying. So it says, therefore, it is not a true witnessing that promotes definitive knowledge. So that's broad there. It is not a true witnessing that promotes definitive knowledge, but it's possible that a person is using an apparatus or a tool and he does achieve knowledge by that apparatus or tool. We're going to see something similar to that when we talk about accurate news. What did we say is accurate news? As you know, accurate news is mutawatir news and hearing the news of a miracle wielding prophet, hearing directly from a miracle wielding prophet. Okay, but don't you know that the scholars said that a very skillful hafiz of hadith can also arrive at knowledge through a famous report? Famous is less than mutawatir. So although it's less than mutawatir, but because he's such an expert, it's possible that he could achieve knowledge through this way. So it is possible that a person could achieve knowledge by means of some apparatus or tool. He says, so the one who wears glasses, his sighting is not accepted. I'm saying right now, it's possible that a person achieves knowledge through the use of some apparatus or tool. It's clear? And Nasafi said, وَبِكُلِّ حَاسَّةٍ مِّنْهَا يُوقَفُ عَلَى مَا وُضِعَتْ هِيَ لَهُ كَالسَّمْعِ وَالذَّوْقِ وَالشَّمِّ. Each sense's function is to detect something in particular, like hearing sounds, tasting flavors, and smelling odors. This is what they are normally for. This is what they are naturally for. Each sense naturally detects something. These senses do not normally detect what is out of their range. But that is not impossible. It's not impossible for these senses to detect what is normally out of their range. Let me actually adjust the sentence here. It says these senses do not normally detect what is out of their range. Let's say these senses do not detect what is normally out of their range. That means something slightly different. Are you unaware, O intelligent Muslim, that Allah gave the Prophet's heart, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, the power of sight? His heart. Allah enabled his heart to see, and also enabled the mountain in the story of Moses to see. Are you unaware of that, O intelligent Muslim? And the mountain didn't even have eyes. Allah enabled the mountain to see. This is because none of those organs, the eyes, the tongue, the nose, the ears, none of those organs have any actual effect in reality. That means they don't create. Since they don't create in reality, then if Allah creates in them, detecting what they don't usually detect, they will detect them. They will detect whatever that is. And if Allah willed, you would not see what is before your very eyes. The fact is that realization happens by the creating of Allah and nothing more. لا يطلع الإنسان على شيء حتى يطلعه الله عليه. One will never encounter anything until Allah makes him encounter it. You won't see it, You won't even think about it. It won't cross your mind unless Allah makes you think about it, enables you to think about it. The five senses are hearing, the power embedded in the nerves in the bottom of the ear canal, through which sounds are realized by way of airwaves adapted to the manner of the sound. Meaning, a body will make a sound, like you'll speak or you'll clap your hands, for example. And when the body makes this sound, it triggers the air. Then this triggered air, this now modified triggered air will move out away from the body. It's modified, it's adapted, it adapts to the sound. So it's not the sound that's actually moving, it's the air that's moving. The sound doesn't move. Those modified airwaves reach the ear canal, and upon that, Allah creates realization of the sound in the realizer, the hearer. Sight. The power deposited in the hollow nerves that meet at the brain and diverge at the eyes, through which colors, shapes, and other things are realized by Allah's creating. And as you know, all of this, all these details, the airwaves and the eyes and the brain and all that, we're talking about what's normal. Otherwise, Allah has the power to create in you all those things. Like the case of the mountain. That mountain that saw Allah, Allah brought it to life without a soul. And He didn't give it a brain and eyes and all this and blood flow and etc., etc., etc. He merely made it alive and enabled it to see. Smell. The power embedded in two protrusions at the front of the brain resembling breast nipples. By it, scents are realized by way of modified air. Same thing like we said about the sound. A body would have a smell, and this triggers the air. Or, maybe doesn't trigger so much like the sound triggers. But the air around this smelly body, whether it smells good or bad, the air around this body will adapt to the body and then move. The air reaches the nostrils and Allah creates the realization. Taste. The power to detect a tasty thing's flavor by nerves spread over the tongue. Upon being mixed with salivary fluid in the mouth and contacting the nerves, Allah creates the realization. So maybe one of us could do, or each of us could do an experiment here. Because the scholars mentioned the saliva on the tongue concerning tasting the flavor. So if you could taste something's flavor without saliva, then there wouldn't be any need to mention this. So why they mention it? So if someone is able to make his tongue completely dry and then see if he can taste something, then we'll see. Completely though. Sometimes I wonder how the scholars knew some things. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. Even airwaves. I don't know how they knew about airwaves. Note, the scholars of fiqh said that the presence of flavor proves physical presence. It's a benefit for you. The scholars of fiqh said if you can taste something, it means that there's a physical presence. Flavor, as you know, is just an attribute. Flavor is not a physical body. The scholar said if you detect flavor on your tongue, this proves a physical presence. And this is very important when it comes to najasa. So, quick digression here for you. Najasa has three qualities. Filth, not just filth, has three qualities: color, taste, and smell. What if you wash the najasa and wash the najasa and wash the najasa, but there's still a color and a smell? A color and a smell. This is not purified. What if you wash the najasa and wash the najasa and wash the najasa so much until there was nothing left but a color? Then it's purified. Like a blood stain, you couldn't get it out. Then it's purified. Or you wash the najasa and wash the najasa and wash the najasa, you put effort until there was just a smell left. There's no color there, but there's a smell left you couldn't get rid of. This is purified. But if you washed it down until there's only a color, it's purified. Or only a smell, it's purified. But what about the flavor? What if you rinsed your mouth and rinsed your mouth and rinsed your mouth and you still found the flavor in your mouth? The scholars said if you find the flavor in your mouth of najasa, I'm talking about najasa here, then this proves that there's a physical najasa in your mouth. So that's why they said if there's still a flavor, it's not excused. If there's still a flavor, it's not excused. If there's only a color, it's clean. If there's only a smell, it's clean. But if there's only a flavor, it's not excused, it's not clean. And the fifth sense is feel or touch or sensation. A power spread throughout the body, realizing heat, cold, moisture, dryness, hunger, pain, and the like. Upon connection and touching, Allah creates the realization. I found it interesting. Some people, they use the word feel for taste. So they might say, do you feel it on your tongue? And they mean, do you taste it? Just interesting to me. But I wouldn't say it personally. These five senses are obvious, and their existences are indisputable. Imagine some kafir trying to deny one or more of the five senses. On the other hand, the extrasensory perception confirmed by philosophers is unconfirmed for Ahlus Sunnah because it does not comply with the Islamic fundamentals. What that means is it lacks evidence. So we do not believe in a sixth sense. We talked about all that before. So that's the first cause of knowledge: sound senses. Accurate news also causes knowledge. Know, O intelligent Muslim, that information is true or false. Yani there's words that they are synonymous. News, information, telling. Information is true or false. Keep that close. And therefore, it is not taken as granted. Yani, someone tells you something, you don't just say, okay, and that's it. Yeah, of course. If you got your news, your information from trustworthy source, and therefore you believed it without question and without checking, that's normal. It's not blameworthy. Not blameworthy. It's very normal. Like, what's a very simple example for you? You want to know what time the plane arrives. So what do? You go to somebody who works at the airport and you ask him, right? Or you call the airport or something like that. Or you want to know when does the bus come. So you look at the schedule. You're not going to say, oh, I don't know if this is true. Let me open an investigation here. So taking news from a reliable source and not even checking, that's normal. But even checking the reliable source is beneficial, is good. But as a rule, information is true or false. It's not true just because it's information. It's not false just because it's information. So it's not taken as granted or taken for granted. Rather, you're going to be what? An intelligent Muslim. Not a gullible Muslim. Doesn't say no, oh, gullible Muslim, to listen to whatever you're told. This is a general statement accepting of exception that information is true or false. True or false. Meaning, any one piece of information is quote unquote true or false. So that's a general statement. It accepts exception because news from God is only true. You don't say news from God is true or false. You say news from God is only true. And you don't say it's not news because it's only true. It's still news, but it's a type of news that's only true. And whatever contradicts news from God is only false. You don't say it's true or false because it's news. And you don't say it's not news because it's only false. And anything that contradicts the definitive mental judgment can only be false. It's still news, though. If someone said to you, 2 plus 2 is 5, that's news. It's false, though. Only false. But besides these very limited exceptions here, news is what? True or false. So anything someone tells you, you say it's true or false. What you see in the news, you say it's true or false. Thus, if it were reported that Zayd stood, then neither truth nor falsehood is more probable without an outside influence. News is true or false by itself. Yani, both of those. True or false together. True or false by itself. But it's not going to be just true by itself. It's not going to be false by itself. It's going to be true because of something else. It's going to be false because of something else. But just for being news, it's going to be true or false. I hope that's clear for you. In this arena, the religion provides the intelligent Muslim with hadith science, the science for authenticating reports. And that's why we have in here some knowledge of hadith, a little bit. Not because you're going to be a hafiz of hadith necessarily, but because there's principles in hadith that even you as a layman and a commoner, you can adapt some of those or adopt. You can adopt some of those principles and use them. You're going to look into someone telling you something. You're going to say, is he trustworthy or he's not trustworthy? Doesn't mean you're a hafiz of hadith. Or you're going to say, where'd you get your information from? And he's going to tell you. Then you might go to that person and say, did Fulan tell you such and such? Did you tell Fulan? Sorry. Did you tell Fulan such and such? He's going to say yes or no. Doesn't mean you're a hafiz of hadith because you're tracing a chain back. Still beneficial for you, though. Truthful information, yani, truthful news, accurate news, khabar, can be a means for definite knowledge. And Nasafi said, that's the theologian, وَالْخَبَرُ الصَّادِقُ عَلَى نَوْعَيْنِ. Accurate news is of two kinds. أَحَدُهُمَا الْخَبَرُ الْمُتَوَاتِرُ. One of the two is the successive mass report. So successive means generation after generation. Mass means on a large scale, which means each generation was a large body. وهو الخبر الثابت على ألسنة قوم. It is the confirmed word of mouth report. It is the confirmed word of mouth report by a folk لا يتصور تواطؤهم على الكذب. By a folk whose conspiring to a lie is inconceivable. Why would these folks conspiring to a lie be inconceivable? Because there's so many of them. Inconceivable here means normally impossible. Normally impossible. When something is normally impossible, then for it to happen is supernatural. If something is normally impossible, then for it to happen actually is supernatural. So I gave you an example the last time. What if someone says, Hitler, that's not real. He's just like Santa Claus. How could that not be real? It definitely is real. But there's only one way this denial that it was real could be true, which is if the conspiracy about him was a supernatural phenomenon. وهو موجب للعلم الضروري. It is a dictator of necessary knowledge, this mutawatir report. What's necessary knowledge? Necessary knowledge is knowledge born in you without you having to think about it. كالعلم بالملوك الخالية في الأزمنة الماضية. Like the knowledge of the kings of old and past ages, والبلدان النائية, and the knowledge of remote lands. Yani, we never saw those remote lands, and we never saw those kings of old. Pharaoh from the time of Moses, and Moses himself, and Jesus himself, we didn't see them. We believe in them. And even if you don't believe in them, if someone doesn't believe in them as prophets, he still can't deny they existed. Unless he wants to prove that the conspiracy about them was a supernatural phenomenon. Not even talking about their miracles, I'm just talking about their existence. Just crosses my mind now. Do you know what the hadith deniers say? They say, these hadiths of yours, they are part of a big conspiracy. A conspiracy to bring the masses of the Muslims under the control of the rulers. That's what they say. If this is the case, Yani, if you really think about that and you pull that apart, you're going to say, how could this be a conspiracy? Because they're basically saying all these hadiths are fabricated, except very few of them. Here and there, there's real hadith. but they don't accept Bukhari, Muslim. Yeah, that's thousands of hadiths right there out of Bukhari and Muslim. Just even one of them. There's thousands of hadiths. They say all those hadiths in Bukhari, get those out of here. Thousands. And then add to that Muslim and Abu Dawood and Nasa'i, Ibn Majah, etc., Malik, Ahmed, all those hadith books. So if someone were to say to them, well, how are you going to deny all these hadiths? They're going to say, this is part of a big conspiracy anyway. So they are committing to what I'm saying to you now. Yani, if this is really a conspiracy and nobody knew, nobody figured it out, then this conspiracy will have to be some supernatural phenomenon. Tell us about how it was before this conspiracy, O hadith denier. What was the case of the Muslims before this conspiracy? وَالثَّانِي خَبَرُ الرَّسُولِ الْمُؤَيَّدِ بِالْمُعْجِزَةِ. And the second type of accurate news that causes knowledge is something told by a messenger aided by a miracle-wielding prophet. وَهُوَ يُوجِبُ الْعِلْمَ الْإِسْتِدْلَالِيِّ. It dictates deduced knowledge. The news from a miracle-wielding prophet dictates deduced knowledge, not necessary knowledge. It's deduced knowledge because you needed an evidence to confirm for you that the information is accurate, and that evidence is the miracle. وَالْعِلْمُ الثَّابِتُ بِهِ يُضَاهِي الْعِلْمَ الثَّابِتَ بِالضَّرُورَةِ فِي التَّيَقُّنِ وَالثَّبَاتِ. Knowledge established this way is comparable to knowledge established by necessity. In what way? Because knowledge that's established by necessity is born in you without even having to think. So in what way would this deduced knowledge be comparable to necessary knowledge? In certitude and confirmation, because it's coming from a miracle-wielding prophet. So when this miracle-wielding prophet tells you anything that he got from revelation, then you will know. So let's stop there, and then next time, inshallah, we can read about Tawatur in detail. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.